everybody. Welcome to Townsend 505. And today I'm going to be doing a special album ranking, and that's going to be Jefferson Airplane. This was a band that I've been always wanting to do a ranking on for a very long time because I'm a big Airplane fan. I love 5 out of their 8 albums. I think they're a band that barely gets mentioned about that I think that they should get talked about more. And I see a couple of album rankings from other people, but now it's my turn to throw my hat in the ring and give my uh, album ranking. If you notice in the title, I have mini album reviews. I will be reviewing these albums as I rank them. So, as I would do a series on them, but I don't like doing a lone series, and I don't think anyone in my friend group is going to want to do an airplane series. So, I just decided, hey, just do the album ranking, do mini reviews on each of these albums and basically get your opinion out on Jefferson Airplane. And, well, there's not no really other introductions for me to say. Let's start ranking the albums. Number 8 is going to be Jefferson Airplane 1989. So this was their very last album together before they disbanded again because they disbanded one time after 72 with the Long John Silver, but then they decided to get back together again, and well, they made this album, and well, as you could tell from my ranking, they should have just stood breaking up. I don't really care for this album that much. To me, this is the weakest album in their discography. I know most people will not be surprised by that because most people will have this in the bottom of their ranking. And well, I'm in agreement with the masses on this one. I think it's the weakest album. I hate the 80s production of this album. It's way too 80s. I like 80s production albums if it's done right from good artists who's used to doing it. But Jefferson Airplane, I don't. Them doing an 80s album just doesn't sit well with me. Just don't think they did it right. Going through the tracks, very first track on the album is Planes. It's an okay album opener. I'd like it a lot more if this was like in their 60s period because they're good harmonies and I think there's good melodies, but the production just destroys and otherwise what could have been a pretty good song for them. Next song on the album's Freedom, and I actually say there's actually a couple of really good songs on this album, believe it or not. I think Grace Slick does a great job singing. I think Grace Slick is always great singing. I don't very rarely has she really disappointed me, but yeah, this is a really good song on the album. I love her vocals on it. I think absolutely kills the show. She does such a good job. The terrible production is the least of my concerns of that song. Uh, solid, solidary, solidary. Yeah, it's a pretty good song. Get Marty Ballin on vocals for first time in a while since you got to hear him on vocals because I think after Volunteers, Marty Ballin ends up leaving the band because of disputes with the band. So first time you hear Marty Ballin singing on a song in a very long time, and I love his vocals, so it's nice to hear him sing again after a long time. I'd say these two songs are like the two best songs on the album for sure. Definitely really good. Maidline Street, it's an okay song. It's not the worst thing in the world, but again, the production, the 80s production really destroys it, in my opinion. Ice Age, I think it's a pretty good song. It's not like top tier Jefferson Airplane, but it's okay. Summer of Love, I think is amazing. I think it's again one of the best songs on the album. Another song that has not so good production, but I think the band kind of steals the show on this song. Then this is when the album starts to tank for me. The Wheel, I think, is a terrible song. I really hate the production on it, and I don't think the vocals are good at all. Common Market, Madrigal is not that good. True Love, it's a Marty Ballin song, and he does a terrible job on this song. I'm like, this is really not a good song for you, Marty. Not good at all. Upfront Blues, I think, is a pretty good song. Now is the time I like. Too Many Years is terrible, and Panda, I think, is an awful album closer, and I think it's an awful way to close out Jefferson Airplane. Not a really good album. There's moments I think are good, but there's just way too much lows for it to be a good album. To me, not a good last album for the Airplane. Number 7, I'm gonna go with Long John Silver, and no, not the fast food place. Uh, but to be honest, I think the fast food place is probably better than this album. Another not so good album. There's like one really good song on this album, which I'll get to, but it's funny. I don't think the lows on this album are as low as the ones on the last album I just covered, but I think the lows are pretty low on this album. There's like one really good song, and like the rest of the album to me is just it's just so mediocre. It's just they tried making a rock album and it just doesn't work. Like, don't do a rock album. You're not known for rock music, Jefferson Airplane. Don't do rock music. It doesn't work out for you. Long John Silver is an abysmal album opener to me. We're already off to a terrible start. Uh, I got a comment from Jason. How many albums? They have 8 albums. I'm already at number 7, so you're not missing much, Jason. Just so that was my number 8 self-titled from '89. But yeah, you got here on time basically. I just started. So back to my review on this album. Yeah, Long John Silver, terrible album opener. It's them trying to do a rock song, and it's a terrible album opener. And to me, it's probably the worst. There's a couple of like weird experimental songs that Airplane does that are worse, but in terms of regular songs, this is the worst Jefferson Airplane song I've ever heard. It's really bad. And I, the fact that the fact that this is like probably the biggest song on the album is just weird to me. But yeah, terrible opening song. Airy, Gang of Eagles is a terrible song. The first 2 songs are the worst songs on the album. Those first 2 songs, I think it's just them trying to do rock music, and it doesn't work. Airplane doing rock music, no thank you. Twilight Double Leader is a good song. It's not amazing. It's like it's okay material for me. Much better than those first 2 songs. Milk Train, that's the best song on the album. It's like so much better than the rest of the album too. It's like a joke how much better this song is compared to the rest. Then you have The Son of Jesus, which it's not good, but it's not terrible either. It's an okay album. Okay way to close out side 1. Side 2 opens up with Easter ? And another terrible opener. Like they had a terrible album opener and they had a terrible side 2 opener. Not really good opening tracks for them on this album, but yeah, not so good. Trial by Fire, pretty good song, I must say. It's not like top tier Jefferson Airplane, but it's okay. Alexander the Medium is okay, and Eat Starch Mom is it's an album closer. I'll give them that. It's a way to close out the album. It's a song. But yeah, again, these last 2 albums I give like 4 out of 10s to. They're like not good albums, not albums I'll ever want to re-listen to. It's just don't really like these 2 albums. And sadly, the disliking continues because the next album in my ranking is going to be Bark. And it's another album I really don't care for. Their bottom 3 albums without, they had 2 albums without Marty Ballin. This was the first album without Marty Ballin because after the Volunteers album, he would leave the band. These two albums are terrible. I'd also give this album a 4 out of 10. So yeah, the bottom three albums are not good. After the 60s, it just, for some reason, the Jefferson Airplane just didn't survive past the 60s. It just couldn't make any good albums after 69, after Volunteers. Yeah, I just not not a good album. Again, another 4 out of 10 album for me. I recommend if you want to get to Jefferson Airplane, these are the last three albums I recommend you listening to. It's not good at all. There's like a couple of highlights I recommend, but album wise, don't even bother. First track on the album, When the Earth Moves Again. Again, not a really strong album opener for me. Definitely not an album opener. Definitely not a song I would recommend opening the album with if I was to release the album, but I digress. Feel So Good is an okay song. It's not like top tier music, but it's an okay song. Crazy Miranda is pretty good. Good Grace Slick song. Definitely one of the better songs on the album, in my opinion. Pretty As You Feel. To me, that's like one of the best songs on the album. I think definitely an underrated song in their catalog. It's a song that I listen to and I'm like, why does it have to be on this album? It's like one of their best songs, and it's like on one of the worst albums, in my opinion. I know it's only they only have 8 albums, but yeah, these bottom 3 albums are not good. Wild Turkey is an abysmal instrumental. Definitely skip it. I like instrumentals for the most part, but if you're like my friends Briar and Jason that doesn't like instrumental tracks, you're really gonna hate Wild Turkey. It's a awful album instrumental. Side 2 opens up with Lawman. It's an okay song. It's not really a song that I go back to. It's an okay slick song. It's not like, whoa, it's like, it's okay. Rock and Roll Island is it's there. Third Weekend Chesula it's probably my second favorite on the album. It's good. It's not like as good as Pretty As You Feel, but it's like a good song on the album. Never Argue with the German if you're tied or European song. That's a handful of the song title. It's a Grace Slick song. It exists. To me, I think this is probably her weakest album for Grace Slick. I think I love her as a vocalist, but to me, this is her weakest album song wise. Even the '80s album, I think she had better songs on it. Thunk, it exists. War Movie, not a good album closer, in my opinion. But yeah, again, another 4 out of 10 album. Yeah, these last 3 albums that they released are not good. Again, if you're getting into the Airplane, these are the last 3 albums I recommend listening to. Number 5, Crown of Creation. Yeah, now we're getting to their 60s music, and now we're getting to good material now. Finally. We're finally getting into some quality material now. This album's amazing. This is their 4th album, and yeah, their first 5 albums are definitely their best 5 albums. I don't see how anyone could have any of their last 3 albums in their top 5. This is such a good album. It opens up with a really good psychedelic song, Lather. Lather is an amazing song. Lather was 30 years old today. Definitely one of Slick's best vocal performances, and it's one of Slick's best written songs, period. It's like a song where it's like, wow, Grace Slick is starting to really mature as a songwriter. I think Grace Slick songs are definitely usually she usually has one of my favorites, but usually she doesn't have like my absolute favorites on the album. But to me, she absolutely steals the show on this album. I think the 3 songs she sings on are the 3 best songs on the album, in my opinion, of course. In Time, Pretty good Marty Ballin, Paul Katner song. I think it's a pretty good follow-up to Lather. It's a nice kind of feel good, easy song after that. Triad, which was written by David Crosby. If you're a Crosby, Stills and Nash fan who loves Crosby, hey, there you go, another Crosby song on a. There's actually two songs that were written by a Crosby, Stills and Nash member. This was a Crosby song, and yeah, this is a pretty good version. I love Triad. It's definitely a song that, of course, as you know, Triad was a song that I believe was gonna be on the Notorious Bird Brother album, but they didn't put it on the album. So I actually like the Jefferson Airplane version better because it's definitely a really good song. Uh, we got Jason in the comment section again. Were they always psychedelic, or did they venture into other genres? They weren't always psychedelic. They actually started off as a folk rock band, kind of like with the they kind of they kind of started off in folk music, but then they kind of went more psychedelic in the late '60s. More specifically, Crime of Creation's definitely a psychedelic album. I wouldn't recommend listening to this. This isn't the first Airplane album I recommend people listening to because it's definitely this and After Bathing at Baxter's are like their two big psychedelic albums. Uh, Surrealistic Pillow, I'd say, is folk, psychedelic folk music. And then, yeah, like I said, their debut album, Jefferson Airplane Takes Off, is more folk music. And Volunteers, um, it's like kind of like a folk rock album again. It's they kind of go away from psychedelic music again, but and then after the '60s is over, they tried they tried doing rock music, and it just to me it didn't work out. They just couldn't do rock music, just straight up rock music. And then in the '80s, they went in full on the '80s pop music, and that's even to me that was even worse when they tried doing that. So they went into different genres, but to me their best stuff is their folk rock music and their psychedelic music. That's hence why it's in my top five. Their first five albums. Uh, Back to what I was saying though, Triad, great song. Definitely check out the Birds version. I think the Birds version is good on its own, but Airplane version, it's even better. Star Trek. Star Trek. I always accidentally say Star Trek, but it's Star Trek. Pretty cool song by their guitarist, Jorma. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the last name, but yeah, this was the second time he had a lead song on an Airplane album. I wish he did more songs because I think his songs are pretty good. Uh, Share a Little Joke. Awesome ballad song. Awesome song by Marty. I think Marty in the '60s, I think Marty was on fire, hence why Jefferson Airplane got really shitty after he left the band. uh, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's called uh, Cushion Gura, or I don't know how to pronounce the song, but it's the last song on side one, track 6 on the album. It's a minute instrumental, and it's arguably one of the worst things they ever did. It's pretty terrible. It's like Revolution 9 kind of bad. It's only 1 minute, so it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's definitely filler. I don't know why they decided to put it on the album, but I digress. Side 2, If You Feel, great opening track to side 2. I think it's a great song. Crown of Creation, definitely one of the best songs on the album, in my opinion. I think it's really underrated. Definitely a song that doesn't get talked about enough. Ice Cream, Phoenix, pretty good song. Greasy Heart, third Grace sung song on the album. I think it's one of the best songs on the album again. I think she really kills the show on this album. I wish she sung more, to be honest, on this album. The House at Punil Corners. It's a good album closer, much better than the last 3 album closer I was talking about before. Of their first 5 albums, I'd say this is probably the weakest, or at least the second weakest of their closing tracks. Um, of their '60s run, I should say, not counting those last 3 albums. But yeah, number 5, Crown of Creation. Number 4, Volunteers. Their 1969 album. This was the last album they had with Marty Ballin before he would leave um, for a while before they reunited in '89 to do that album. And really good album. This is uh this is more of a protest album because this is like around the time when Vietnam was at its highest, of course. I mean, CCR would release um Fortunate Son. They would release that song, Fortunate Son. I think of course, that's a great CCR song. And of course, Volunteers has the very famous Volunteer song. I think it's one of Airplane's absolute best songs. Definitely a top 10 favorite songs from them. It's the closing track on the album. To me, it's the best song on the album. You have Marty Ballin yelling and screaming about the protest that's going on. Look what's happening on the street. Got a revolution, got a revolution. Great song. I think definitely, if there's a song that you should check out from Jefferson Airplane that's not those two big hits, White Rabbit and uh, To Love Somebody, I definitely recommend listening to Volunteers. That's an amazing song. Uh, but going through the album itself, "We Could Be Together" is the opening track. Another protest song, basically saying like, we're traitors. We didn't fight in the war. We're traitors to America. They actually even say the F. They actually drop the F bomb on this song. Yeah, I know. They actually curse on this album. It's the first time you hear a big artist really curse on an. First time I've ever heard an artist drop an F bomb on an album. I know the Rolling Stones said the B word on "Stupid Girl" on the Aftermath album, but this is like the first time you really hear someone drop the F bomb on an album, and I love it. I love it. I think it's pretty epic. Good Shepherd, another really good song. Uh, Dorma, Jorma does the lead vocals, and I think he does a good job. The Farm, I think is a great song. Hey Frederick is an amazing song. Side 2, Turn My Life Down is pretty good. They do an amazing version of Wooden Ships. I don't know if you're still watching this video, Jason, but they do an amazing job on Wooden Ships. Because if you didn't know, David Crosby and Paul Kantner and Steven Stills, like they actually got together, the three of them. It's not just Sidney Crosby, Steven Stills. I meant to say it's not just Steven Stills and David Crosby writing the song together. Paul Kantner of Jefferson Airplane co-written the Wooden Strip song. So technically, the Crosby, Stills, and Nash version isn't the only original. Technically, Jefferson Airplane also did it, and I might be crazy for saying this, but I like this more than the Crosby, Stills, and Nash version. That's good. I like Wooden Ships. Yeah, check out the Airplane version. I think their version is definitely. It's not like the Crosby, Stills, and Nash version, but it's definitely a version that you'll probably at least respect because it's different. And technically, one of the members of Jefferson Airplane wrote the song, so he's technically not covering it. I mean, whoever did it first, but technically he didn't cover it because he actually co-wrote it. He co-wrote it with the Crosby and Stills. So there's that. Oh, hey Mickey, how you doing? I agree with you. I prefer the Airplane version of Wooden Ships. Yeah, I love the Crosby, Stills, and Nash version. I'm not dissing on the CSM version, but I don't know. I just the Airplane version. I just always preferred whenever I listen to the album. It's the first version it's the one I'm used to. It's the one I heard first. So yeah, big fan of Wooden Ships. To me, one of the best songs on the album. Eskimo Blue Day, probably one of my least favorites on the album, but it's pretty good. A Song for All Seasons I like. Meadowlands I like. Volunteers, like I said, best song on the album. I definitely, I love Volunteers. Volunteers is the big song on the album. I recommend everyone listening to. Check it out. Check the song out. Um, I'm doing well. Happy the Dodgers won. Yeah, congratulations, Mickey. Congratulations. They earned it. Uh, Screw the Yankees. I hate them with all my guts. So, congrats on the Dodgers. They earned it. They earned it. Otani, uh, Bats, all everyone on that team deserved it. So, shout outs to the Dodgers for being the Yankees. Um, they deserved it. They deserve to lose, and I hope their cheating fans cry. Yes, exactly. As a Met fan, I am celebrating this tremendous day. This day after the Yankees lost. I love it. I have a ton of respect for the Dodgers. And a lot of Dodgers fans have respect for the Mets. We have a lot of respect towards each other. Yankees, we have no respect for the Yankees because they have no respect for us. I have no. I hope no Yankee fans are watching. Ha ha ha. If they have a problem with me and what I have to say about the Yankees, they could comment down below, Jason. Of course. If they have a problem with me, too bad on them. They have 27 rings. I think they could take a little trash talk from a Met fan. Um, okay. Now that I think I went on a little too much of a tirade on the Yankees, but number 3 on my ranking, Jefferson Airplane Takes Off. This album is very different from their other 4 albums in the 60s because, for one, no Gray Slick on this album. Yeah, this is pre-Gray Slick. This was before Gray Slick was even in the band. And this is a really good album. I think this is a album that definitely falls through the cracks because I don't think people really talk about it enough. Of course, the female vocalist who does sing on this is Anderson, and I think she's a good vocalist. I mean, the reason why she left the band wasn't because of band problems. She had a family to attend to, and she didn't think Airplane was really going anywhere else. So she was like, we can believe the band, and then they got Grace Slick, and rest is history there. But yeah, I'm so happy. I'm actually happy it happened. But Anderson, great vocalist. I think she definitely had potential with the band. But let's get into the track listing. So actually, before I do, I must say this is the folk rock album I'm talking about, by the way, to Jason, because I feel like this is an album you might like, Jason, because there's no psychedelicness to it. This is like to me, this is a folk rock album, and you might like this album more than the Surrealistic Pillow album. That's just me though. But let's get right into the track listing. First song on the album, Blues from an Airplane. Great album opener. Definitely sets the mood of the album, just like a relaxed song. Great lead vocals from Marty, as usual. Great introduction to the band, I must say. A great album opener. Let Me In. Love this song. You got Paul Kantner on lead vocals. Oh, let me in. You know where. Pretty. There's actually 2 different versions of the song where the uncensored version, he says, put it so let me in, you know where. Pretty dirty innuendo there. But the uncensored version of Let Me In, he's like, let me in. It's like, you let me in, but I forgot the uncensored version, but the censored version, but it's like definitely interesting hearing the uncensored version. Oh, let me in. Trying to remember the lyrics. Trying to. Oh, you let me in. You're driving me crazy. As opposed to let me in. You know where. But yeah. That's weird. It's like listening to a blues album from Fleetwood Mac. It's not what I expect. Oh, you say it's more of a blues album? I'd say it's more of a folk album, but it's 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 not a blues album. It's a oh, you probably heard me say blues from an airplane and thought it's not a blues album. It's a more of a folk album. Yeah, it's called this. The first song of the album is called "Blues from an Airplane." It's not a blues song. Trust me. It's early. It's not like early Fleetwood Mac. Trust me. It's much better than that. Uh, bringing me down. Pretty good rock song. It's no secret. That's like one of my absolute favorite Jefferson Airplane songs. Period. I think Marty Balin probably does his best vocal performance ever in a song. It's no secret, my love is for you. It's no secret. Great. One of my absolute favorite songs from them, period. Tobacco Road, pretty good cover. Not like one of my favorite songs from them. It's pretty good. The original track listing had a song called Running Around This World. I think the song's amazing. There's actually releases where the song's not on the album because they were actually talking about drugs. They were alluding to drugs, and record label wasn't crazy about that, so they told them to take the song off. So unless it's an original pressing of the album, the song's not on the album. But you could find the song on iTunes. It's on the CD version. It's a bonus track, so it's not gone forever. But if you wanted to get this album on vinyl, it's like really hard to find this without it. No, I meant listening to a folk album without Grace Slick. It's not what I expected. Won't sound like it. Jefferson Airplane. I agree. It's definitely interesting. It's interesting not having an album without Grace Slick because you're so used to having her on an album. But I think Anderson is a pretty good backup female vocalist, and I think the song that she does sing on is pretty good too. So it won't be that off. It's not. It's not as weird as early Fluid Mac. Trust me. I feel like you get used to it because plus there's like a bunch of albums with her, so it is weird having this knowing that this is the only album without her. Um, Come Up the Years, definitely one of my favorite songs on the album. Shouldn't be going. Come up the years, come up the years. Run Around, fun song. Don't Slip Away is a nice song. Always been a song that I really enjoyed. Don't slip away, no, no, don't slip away. Now that we're here. Great song. I love the guitar on it. Chauffeur Blues. This is the song with Anderson singing lead on, and I like her vocals, but this is the weakest song on the album. If I feel like if Grace sung on it, it would be like one of the best songs on the album, but to me, it's a cover, so I'm not too mad about it. But to me, it's the weakest song on the album. And I Like It, pretty good closing track. I think it's a solid way to closing out the album. But yeah, number 3, I think this album definitely needs to be recognized more because there's like a lot of aspects of Jefferson Airplane that's on this album, but people don't pay attention to it because it doesn't have Grace on it. So I think it's a pretty good album. Number 2, After Bathing at Baxter's. And you're probably thinking, what's that album title? After Bathing at Baxter's. What the heck is that? Yeah, so Baxter's for Jefferson Airplane was their code word for acid. So basically and bathing was their clue word for tripping. So basically the album's called After Tripping on Acid. Basically. It's an album title. Definitely an album title that I wasn't expecting when I first got into them. And as for the album itself, I think it's a really good album. Because it's number 2, so it has to be an album I like, of course. This is such a far out album. This is the most psychedelic album they've ever made. It's an album that if you're not prepared for it, then I don't recommend you listening to it. It's not an album for the unexpected. It's an album that is definitely that'll definitely make you go, "What the heck am I listening to?" There's like a ton of moments on the album that makes you think that, like, "What the heck is going on here?" Uh, I'm a big fan of After Bathing at Baxter's. The Ballad of You and Me, Poniel is a great song, especially live. I agree with you, Mickey. I agree with you. I'm so glad I found someone who's also a fan of this album because this is a far out album and I absolutely love it. It's an album that's definitely there was actually a point in time where I actually had this over number 1, but after rethinking about it, I definitely will keep this at number 2. Speaking of the Ballad of You and Me and Poniel, that's the opening track, and right away you're just like, "What is this? This isn't Surrealistic Pillow." If you are used to Surrealistic Pillow and you go to this album, you hear the song, you're like, "What is this? This isn't the Airplane I know." And I think it's an epic album opener. I think it's so cool. Small package of value will come to you shortly. It's a psychedelic madness track. It's just full of noises and sounds, and it's a track on the album that I usually skip, but it's definitely on there. It's definitely a trip for sure. Uh, Young Girl Sunday Blues. This is an amazing song because fun fact, this is actually a live cut on the album. This isn't actually recorded in the studio. This was actually recorded live, and they thought it was good enough to put on the album. And if you didn't know that before I told you that, you would have never thought this was a live cut. And oh boy, this is definitely another epic song on the album. I love the sort of laughing they do in the beginning. Ha ha ha, boom, bam, boom, bam, 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 boom, bam, boom. I think Marty Ballin kills it in the vocals. Definitely one of his best moments. Next song on the album, Martha. Great song. I think Martha was a single on the album, but it didn't go anywhere. This was a single and it went nowhere on its release, and it's a shame. I think Martha's one of their best songs. I think Kantner does a great job on vocals, and it's so trippy, and I absolutely love it. Wild Time, another amazing song on the album. It's a wild time. Great song. Uh, then you have The Last Wall of the Castle, which is another Jorma song on the album. And yeah, another pretty good song from him. First time he's ever done a lead vocal on a Airplane album. And then you got Rejoice. Great slick song. I think she kills it on this one. Side 2 opens up with Watch Her Ride, another great song on the album. Spare Change, the 9-minute instrumental. I don't know what you think about this track, Mickey, but I think it's 9 minutes of filler. Yeah, I never cared for Spare Change, and to be honest, that's like the main reason why I have this at number 2 and not number 1. I think the highs on this album are higher than the ones on Surrealistic Pillow, but this is the one track that's kind of preventing me from wanting to put this at number 1 because it's like 9 minutes, and to me, it's 9 minutes of nothing, in my opinion. But I could be in the minority on this one. Some people might be like, this is one of their best instrumentals, but I could do without Spare Change. In my opinion, they should have put Things Are Better in the East on the album. That would have been a much better song to have. Yeah, it's a weird song for sure, too long. I don't know if you ever heard Things Are Better in the East, but I think that would have been a much better song to put in its spot instead of Spare Change. And to me, it would be not only would it be an album that would be my number one Airplane album, but it'd be like really high in my top 100 albums list. That's how much I like the songs on this album. Then you get to the next song on the album, Two Heads. Great slick song. Another one of my favorite songs from her. And the last song, Won't You Try, and Saturday Afternoon. Another one of their best songs. And it's, to me, in my opinion, their best closing track that they've had on an album. It's either, I'd say either this is their best album closer or Volunteers. Those are like their two best album closers they've had, in my opinion. And yeah, that's my number two. After Bathing at Baxter's, I think this album surely definitely needs to get its recognition as well. This and Airplane Takes Off are their two most underrated albums, in my opinion. Number one, the basic choice. I know it's basic. I know it's typical, but I have to go with Surrealistic Pillow. To me, this is their best album. It's one of my absolute favorite albums of all time. It's on my top 100 albums list. To me, this is their most important album. It's their big breakthrough album as a band. Jerry Garcia of Grateful Dead, which I don't like Grateful Dead, but he played a big role in this album. He was their spiritual advisor. Stupid, but yeah, he was a spiritual advisor. The only album I know, I gave it an 8 out of 10. So yeah, that's good. That's a good score. 8 out of 10. It's means you like it. Thought it was a good album. I'm glad you gave it that score. Yeah, I think this is an amazing album. An album that it's an album that really that definitely turned me into an Airplane fan. I got this album. I don't have it on me, but I bought the album when I was for my 17th birthday when I got my birthday money. And this is an album that I loved on first listen. But let's get right into it. First track on the album, She Has Funny Cars. I think this is a fun album opener. Your mind's guaranteed. So what do you want from me? Fun opening track. Somebody to Love. Great slick song. It's one of the two big songs for them. Don't you want somebody to love? Don't you need somebody to love? Great song. Don't mistake it for the Queen song. I'd rank Volunteer 1, Surrealistic Pillow 2, After Bathing at Baxter's 3, and Crown of Creation 4. The rest are garbage. Oh, you don't like the debut album? Oh, that stinks. I actually really like the debut album. Good top 4 though. Yeah, Surrealistic Pillow definitely number 1 for me as well. My favorite is White Rabbit. Nice. That's a good choice. That's one of my favorites on the album too. My Best Friend. Very, very debut sounding. It sounds like songs that would be on their debut album, and I love it. You're my best friend, and I see you so well through the end of time. You don't need me. Masterpiece of a song. Today. I love Today. I think Today is one of the best songs on the album. Coming Back to Me, haunting Marty Balin ballad. And to me, it's probably his greatest achievement on the band, in my opinion. I always loved Coming Back to Me. I think, to me, Coming Back to Me has always been one of my absolute favorite on the album. Even though it's like a slower song, I've always loved it. Mickey commented, I prefer Somebody to Love, but White Rabbit's great too. Yes, I agree. Right Rabbit's really good song. I think both the songs are amazing. Both big hits on the album. 3/5 of a Mile in 10 Seconds. Yeah, it's an interesting title, but I think the song's pretty cool. Oh, I love you, baby. Yes, I do. Pretty epic song on the album. DCBA 25. underrated song in my opinion. Really criminally underrated a lot of really underrated songs on this album. Everyone knows Somebody to Love and White Rabbit, but there's just so much great deep cuts on this album. DCBA 25 is definitely one of them. I love this song. I once wrote a paper on White Rabbit in college. Oh, cool. Yeah. That's a good one to write a paper on because very trippy song. How Do You Feel? I love that song. How do you feel when I see a girl like that? I don't know what to feel. Ba, ba, ba. Very mamas and papas like, and I love it for it. I think definitely one of my absolute favorites on the album. Embryonic Journey, amazing instrumental. Like it's 1 minute, but really cool acoustic guitar instrumental that I've always really liked. Of course, White Rabbit, the big hit on the album, another big hit on the album. I love White Rabbit. It's definitely one of the best songs on the album. I'm not gonna be like, it's a hit song, so I don't like it. I love this song. White Rabbit, such an epic song. And then Plastic Fantastic Lover, pretty great album closer. I'm a plastic fantastic lover. Very Bob Dylan coded, and I love it. I think it's really good album closer. I don't think it would have. I think White Rabbit would have been the better album closer, but I think Plastic Fantastic Lovers is a respectable album closer. Okay, that should conclude my ranking. Just in case anyone missed it and they're just getting to me now, just to give a brief ranking again. Number 8, Jefferson Airplane, 89. Number 7, Long John Silver. Number 6, Bark. Number 5, Crown of Creation. Number 4, Volunteers. Number 3, Jefferson Airplane Takes Off. Number 2, After Bathing at Baxter's. And number 1, Surrealistic Pillow. And, well, that should conclude my ranking. And, well, I hope the Jets do well tonight. Me too. Expect a post-game video on that game tonight. Hopefully I'm a little happy in that video because I don't know if I could take another Jets loss this week. I don't know if I could take another one of their losses, but let's see. Let's see how they do. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Jason and Mickey, for commenting on my video as I've been ranking them. Always appreciate it. The pretty long video, 48 minutes, which is good. I was hoping to make a little bit of a longer video. I don't like doing short videos because I like doing longer videos on my own, but yeah, so almost 50 minutes. And well, thank you so much. Thank you to the people who have been watching my videos. Appreciate it. And well, see you guys next time. So long.